Today, I'd like to welcome JR from Joseph Interiors. JR, how you doing?
Hey, Eric. I'm doing great. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. I'm excited.
Absolutely. And today we are in a very special place. I think that it's a place that's near and dear to your heart and has a lot of significance in your journey. What is that place?
Yes, it is. We are back at Walker Zanger, where it all started for me in my career path. That was one of my first, places to develop what I do now.
Yeah. How did you end up getting into this organization? And was it this particular location or was it somewhere else?
So back in 2001, my gosh, I'm dating myself here. They were located on the other side of Costa Mesa, and I had previously worked for another showroom doing kitchen and bath design.
Yeah.
And, if you're working in that tile industry, everybody knows who Walker Zanger is. And somebody said to me, he's like, oh my gosh, you're so creative. You're really good. You should apply to get a job there.
Yeah, because this is like the Hermes of fashion.
This
right?
is it. This is the ultimate, one of the ultimate showrooms for, stone and tile selection.
So how did you end up in the space like this at such a young age?
I knew I wanted to do design. I was still in college taking architecture classes, and I was, in love with that. And I just also love materials.
Yeah.
And they had a great selections in natural stones, a lot of things that actually comes from Brazil, which is where I'm from.
Okay.
So it made sense for me to apply there and see. I love their showrooms, and it's an experience. You walk in, it's just really, really beautiful. So I decided to apply, and I got a job right away.
Wow. Well, and we're here today, which is perfect timing, and special shout out to them for hosting us.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for allowing us in your beautiful facility, Walker Zanger. So make sure to give them a follow. So today I wanted to spend some time just getting to know you, JR. Obviously, I know you a little bit outside of this particular podcast interview, and we have some connection through the CrossFit community and some friends that we have in common. But I feel like there's a lot more I don't know about you. And so I'm really excited about this podcast because it's going to give me some more background on you. And you already touched upon something that I'm very interested in exploring. So we'll just start there. You said Brazil.
Yes.
I love to travel. I've been to 40 plus countries. I've lived abroad myself. I could spend the rest of my life traveling, but I have not been to Brazil. But I've been close. I've been to Chile. I've been to Peru. I feel like I've been to Paraguay. I've been surrounding that area. So tell me about your time in Brazil.
It's a beautiful place to visit, I'd say. I was born actually not far from Paraguay, near the Iguazu Falls.
I've been there.
Yeah, very lush.
Oh my gosh.
Very green. Yeah.
If I may real quick, I felt that's where the world was being sucked into the earth. You walk out on these wooden boards, you get close to the water's edge, and it feels like you don't want to go overboard there.
Right. Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Wow.
The volume of water and green and nature. So, I was born in a small little town, farmland, and I grew up there. And when I was 16, my mom and my sister and I decided to move to the States through a church program, and I landed in California. So it's been a journey. Wow. Yeah.
So from a young age, you ended up growing up in Brazil, small environment. What were your teenage years like?
It was, very fun, and we traveled quite a bit. Even though we're in the south part of Brazil, we would go to the East Coast, which is the beach. Everyone knows Brazil for the beach, so you have to go to the beach. So my family and I, we took some road trips, and I remember as a young kid always paying attention to things that most, 5-year-old, 8-year-old, 10-year-old pays attention to, which is like buildings and details and bridges. And so I loved, being in the car and just going through from our, farmlands into like bigger towns and seeing everything. So it was great. It was great. And we got to a place where my mom wanted a new venture for us as a family, and California was a direction. And
wow, not a bad state to end up in.
Not at all.
So I heard you say something about being somewhat observant at a young age and maybe being a little bit fascinated with architecture. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, it is. In fact, growing up, my dad was fascinated with construction. He was in a completely different field. He had his own business, slaughterhouse and farming and all. And in the period that we live in this particular house, there was like 3 massive renovations. I'm talking about major expansions. And I remember as a small kid being part of those meetings, just coming around the corner, sitting at the table and voicing my opinion, like picking out countertop materials and saying, oh, this looks good with this. And I just had a natural knack and interest for it. So,
did they listen to you?
Somewhat, they would. I mean, as a little, I've always been very opinionated, as you can imagine. So yes, they would always. I remember helping them make selections on interior finishes, like curtains and things like that. Right. And remember the fabric on the sofa. There's always this interest from a very young age. I would travel to my friend's house and families, and I remember how a room made me feel, and how my grandma's sofa was cozy, and in my head, I can still remember like the fabric, what it felt like, what it smelled like. So there were always this very sensory influence in me in spaces. And I thought it was just architecture. Yeah.
So you were observant to these environments. You had a desire to get involved because were you trying to ultimately try to create spaces that recreated those feelings for yourself because you yourself really valued that at a young age? Like, meaning you mentioned your grandma's home, right? And it obviously is still sticky in your mind. Is that a big part of what sort of got you into the space to begin with? Wanting to recreate that for not only yourself, but maybe for others?
Yeah, that's a great question you asked, because I had the conversation with one of my best friends about what is it about creating spaces? What is it about, conforming, putting ideas together to create a home, and what does it mean to create a home? And she asked, we were having a conversation, and I kind of had to stop and think. And that's what you went back to your question, where it's really about creating a space that, resembles a happy time, something with family and friends. And since being out here since I was 16, I'm now almost 43. It's been a while, so I feel like this is my home. This is where I live. I have my, husband and kid, and our pets. So this is home for me. But there is a sense of, that nostalgic sort of idea of creating home for somebody, or maybe a lack of, or something.
Yeah. So let's talk about that first home when you and your family came up from Brazil and landed in this terrible place we call Southern California.
I remember it was the hottest day in July.
Really?
Vividly. Yeah, we got, my mom was working for a family in Santa Monica, so we got dropped off at the airport, and we got taken to Santa Monica and like Ocean Boulevard, and I'm like, this is the dream. I'm never leaving. Yeah. But we actually had a space, an apartment in Alhambra, which is near Pasadena. Yep. And I was doing like some English courses and trying to finish my education in at Alhambra High School. And at that time, my first job was at a warehouse, like almost like a Home Depot type of space. They sold tiles, and I just had a job at a warehouse, and I learned the language very quickly. Actually, growing up in Brazil studying, I had a basis of English. So then I got asked, hey, do you want to help out in the front? Because we have some speaking, clients that need some help. And sure, most people then spoke Spanish. That's like the language in construction in California. So, which I also learned, which is a great thing. And I spent a few hours at the showroom, and as I'm waiting for clients to come in, noticed that their displays looked a little bit, needed a little help. Right. And there I go, putting some tiles, and I knew what we had in the back, and it was like just a matter of putting things together, and people come in, it's like, oh, I love what this is. And that's when I discovered like the power of a layout, the power of putting a palette together without even knowing. I was 17 and a half. I was 17 years of age, and I started doing that just because, why not?
It was just innate in you.
Probably.
Yeah, you just had this desire. And was that when you were taking what sounds like your own initiative to do this, because it doesn't sound like others in that organization were asking you to do that. Chances are they probably weren't thinking along those lines. When you did that, do you feel like it was more for you and less about the company? You just felt like you walked into a space that didn't present well and did not feel easy to you, and therefore you wanted to address it? Somewhat like if I were to walk into a home and I see a painting on the wall and it's crooked, I need to fix that painting. and I could really care less if you're concerned. It's not for you, it's kind of for me, but the byproduct is for you.
No, that's exactly what he felt like. Like you said, I wasn't told to do displays, but I was sitting there bored and looking at all these materials, and I just like, I'm just gonna fix this because it was, like you said, it was not proper. And funny thing, then they opened up, this company ended up opening up 2 other locations, and guess who got to go do their displays?
Okay.
It was me. So it was an immediate thing for me to know, like, okay, I love materials, I love putting palettes together and creating things, and this idea of architecture has resonated with me since I was a kid. I remember for my 10th birthday, my dad asked, what would you like? And I asked, you'd be surprised, for an architectural magazine subscription.
Really?
What 10-year-old asked for that, right?
None.
Yes. My cousins were like, bikes and video games. I'm like, just give me a magazine. I want to see homes. I want to see the world, because in my small town, it's very limited. I grew up in this beautiful colonial Spanish sort of home, and we did renovations and things. We traveled quite a bit, but I want to see more. I remember I would watch all the American, shows and televisions like Melrose Place, and I can see all the homes in all these movies, and I was like, I'll be fascinated, and I'll bring out my sketchbook and start like doing elevations and coloring and doing things like that. And that was my that was the happiest. I remember being a kid and using all my pencil colors, and
so you can actually sketch as well.
Oh yeah, not as good as I was in architecture school, but yeah, I can. I would have a client at Walker Zanger come in and describe the space to me, the bathroom here, and as they're telling me, like on the back, just using my little sketchbook, and I would show them just like a black and white sketch, like, oh my gosh, that's my space. And I was like, all right, let's layer it up, let's put some beautiful tiles in, and it was a really natural, gift and a thing for me to be able to listen, visualize it, and create a space, create a palette.
Sounds like it brings you a lot of joy, and it's something that is not something that you developed into. Some people later in life, late 20s, early 30s, when they're sort of done partying, they have to find a real job, and what am I going to do? Then they sort of pursue a career. But for you, it was really at such a young age. It was very much just a part of your DNA.
Yes, it was. I never once doubted what I wanted to do. Like I said, I started in my early teens taking architecture class at school, and I go, I want to do architecture. And that's what I started at Orange Coast College. At the same time, I was doing kitchen and bath design, which is more interior focused. And I was, to be fair with you, I was kind of struggling with architecture. Just, the approach, the general idea of a building, an envelope, and the calculations and whatnot. I thought it must be a language barrier, not what I want to do. But I was struggling, and thank God to one of my counselors at Orange Coast College. She's like, what do you do for a living? And she said to me later that I light up when I said I work with stones and tiles, and I do this, I design kitchens and baths. And she's like, she told me, you're going to take an interior architecture program, and here are your options.
Right.
So it was, I already knew it. So then at Walker Zanger as well, I remember helping a lot of designers. And I just admire how they, handle the project, talk to clients. And I looked at one specific designer, and I said, one day I want to do that. I'm going to become an interior designer. And back then, at my early 20s, late teens, I had to, finish school and go to an architecture school, get a degree and stuff like that. So it was a long sort of journey to get to my Joseph interior design office.
Yeah, that's a remarkable backstory. It's not one that you hear too often, where it was really foundational at a very young age, because a lot of people want to, be a lawyer, for example, right, maybe, or a doctor at a very young age, and they quickly realize that's expensive, and it takes a lot of time to pull that off.
Yeah.
It's also remarkable, too, in that what you share is that in your college experience, there was a counselor that had the insight into you to help you sort that out as to what direction to take. And that really makes a significant difference when we have some mentors and people in our life along our journey that can help us just kind of see things that we might already know to be true, but they really affirm those ideas and give us the freedom to pursue them.
Yeah, no, it was extremely important for her to say those words to me, because it was just affirming what I was looking for. And I didn't know there was actually a 4-year degree for interior designers, because I think just a couple of years prior to that, there was like extensions of, this and that. It's like, no, I want a degree from a school that's reputable, and
Yeah.
it was great to have her as a mentor and to put me on track. And in fact, years not too long ago, I actually reached out to her. She's no longer a counselor; she retired. But I was like, I just need her email, and I sent her this beautiful letter saying, you probably remember me. I was one of your many students, or that you mentor and counsel. I am have a degree, a firm, and here's my information. And thanks again for putting me on the right track.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, hopefully you haven't reconnected with her yet.
Not yet. I have not.
Hopefully you're able to, and you can share, and I'm sure that will bring a lot of joy to her.
Yeah, I hope so.
So it's fair to say you're in your early 20s at this point,
Right?
and you're coming out of school. You have this degree. You're top of the class, A's across the board. I'm going to make the assumption. You're loving life, and you've got palm trees and sunshine surrounding you. You have the access to the beaches. Life is pretty good at this point.
Yeah.
What are you doing next?
Well,
Because you're still working
right.
for this other company, right? And
Right.
still probably taking a lot of interest in organizing, and they're probably going to want to give you more roles and responsibility because you're good at what you do.
Right. I remember, it was a full-time position at Walker Zanger as a showroom designer, but there was the amount of opportunities that I saw there was tremendous. I would be sketching out all these various bathrooms that I would design for somebody, and I remember back then we had to make that very clear that all this extra design work was done on my own time, and so I felt like I always had a second job, like some type of freelance going on the side, and loved Orange County, enjoyed the beaches as much as possible. Always wanted, hiking and going out to clubs on the weekend because I love to dance.
Yeah.
So that was my thing. So it was a very full, busy life, but work, weighed heavily on me until I fully decided to stop and go to architecture school and get a degree.
So you left the job market.
I did. 2010.
2010,
Yeah.
and then just went 100% school.
Yeah, that's it.
Wow, a lot of people juggle that simultaneously, but you were fully committed at that point.
Yeah, architecture school, for those who have been part of it, it's very involved, and it's the degree, the school that I went to, Woodbury University in Burbank. They have a rigorous program, so you are in studio, I kid you not, 16, 18-hour days. So it's very strenuous. It really forces you to show this is passion. This is not just because you want to have this is really labor of love.
Wow.
So I still had a job. I was still helping clients pick out do tile work and like interior design like on a freelance basis. But school was my primary focus for 3 years. I was able to finish the degree in 3 years. It's a 4-year degree, but I finished in 3.
Of course, 3 years. You're top of the class.
For most classes, yeah. All the color theory, all the design.
That's your wheelhouse.
Yeah.
But you were doing it as a young boy.
Yeah.
Right. So you get out of school, you graduate, you now have the credentials. You've been, obviously applying your skills for a number of years. What's next? Do you go back into the workforce, or do you immediately look to create something for yourself that plays off of what you were previously doing, this freelance design work?
Great question. So for my experience, I knew that I want to have my design studio, and coming out of this, great architecture program, I knew I wasn't ready for that yet. And
okay.
I also tell my younger, designer friends that work for an experienced designer. Work at a firm. Get your your feet wet.
Yeah.
Learn as much as you can. I've know of people that just decide to open up their business and been doing great, but I really, really appreciate experience, and I think it weighs heavier on your resume than having all your credentials and whatnot. So I told myself, well, let's find a high-end residential firm that does exactly what I want to do. Get in there, learn as much as you can, create more connections, and in 5 years, I told myself, 5 years, you'll be ready to open up your own studio, and that's what I did. I didn't even have to look for a job, which is great, because when I finished, it was in 2013. Back then, the business of construction, if you recall it after the 2008 crash, market crash, there were not a lot of jobs in our industry, especially for residential, and So I was like, well, I guess I'm just going to have to get back out there. And I put my portfolio together and made a list of people that I wanted to visit. And I got a call 3 months prior to finishing my degree from this wonderful designer in Pasadena saying, I heard great things about you. I need assistance. And you're the right candidate. I'd love to meet you.
Perfect.
And from that one interview.
You were in Orange County at that time?
No, I was in Burbank finishing. I was in LA. So
You're
I
still
was
in
living,
LA at this time?
Yeah, I was living near Burbank, finishing my degree, and she was in South Pasadena, like San Marino area. So she offered me a job, and it was great because it was like internship that turned into a job, and it turned into a great, sort of stepping stone to where I'm at right now.
Did she know that you had dreams of having something on your own?
She did. In fact, our meeting the first day, we sat down and she's like, "Yeah, I heard great things about you, but tell me your story and I'll share mine." And we kind of went to this like friendly. It didn't feel like an interview. It felt like a conversation. Right. And at the end, she's like, I would love to know. And she asked me, it's like, where do you see yourself in 5 years from now, 10 years from now? I was like, I'm going to be in your seat. And She looked at me. She's like, well, I'm glad to know that because I would love to be part of your journey. I would love to give you as much information. And so from the beginning, she knew that eventually I would like to go on my own. And she did say, she's like, I'm not doing this for a long time. I plan on retiring very early and take care of my kids. And that's exactly what happened. Not in 5 years. It took us 7 years to get there. But
yeah, I love the honesty in that situation because I would imagine that some people, they recognize the value of going to work for organizations, right? And as really to learn the trade, and then they want to venture off and do it on their own.
Right.
And maybe those employers don't want to take them on because they feel like, well, why am I going to invest in you if you're just going to take this away and compete against me?
Right.
But you were upfront with this person, and you found somebody that was receptive to helping you grow.
Yes, exactly. I mean, this is part of who I am. I'm black and white as it gets, and I appreciate people like that. So, and she was fairly honest. I was at her house, and she did say, she's like, yeah, I would love to know that I was part of your journey. She's been one of the greatest mentor to my journey, to my career, to what I do. I see every now and then I'm doing a design and putting things together, and I see her influence, because
Really?
I had a lot of experience in construction, tile, design work, hard surfaces, where she comes in with all the furnishings and furniture design and fabric and patterns combination. She's tremendous. She was not trained, formally trained as an interior designer, but she traveled a lot and she had a lot of influences, and I learned so much with her.
Yeah, it's great when you can have those mentors. I'll share a funny story. It's somewhat design related, but I worked in my early 20s, I was a software developer, which was also tasked with doing some graphic design, which sort of kind of whet my appetite to some of that stuff too. And I remember creating some icons for the application that we were developing at the time. And I would go present my work to my boss. His name is June. And I remember the first time he would see the graphic, the icon, he would zoom into like literally 50,000 on the magnifying glass. And he would see the 1 or 2 pixels to tell me this is not centered.
Wow.
and if I fast forward like 20 plus years later, I zoom in
See?
to make sure things are centered. Yeah. And I'll never forget, because that happened much like you at such a young age, but there's things that get carried forward when you have these great mentors in my life. Yeah. So they linger on.
Hence you going to a room and fixing the art, crooked artwork on the wall. It does impact you in a positive way.
It really does, and it just shows you the power of being a good mentor and focusing on lifting others and not being selfish with your information and trying to help others, because many of us all started in that same place, and we rely on other people to help us along our journey.
Exactly.
And it sounds like you had some great people along the way.
Yeah, no, she was a fantastic leader, and we were still very close friends, and I'm actually going to go visit her in Montana in a few weeks. And it's wonderful to have that sort of relationship and that idea of what a business, what is it to be a business owner, what is it to be a leader.
Right.
There's a big difference between being a boss. You know what I mean? Like if you can kind of lead people and help them along the way. So I'm kind of using the same language now at our studio where I have brought on 2 assistants. We have a design associate and we also have a business coordinator. And I see myself saying the same thing that you told me.
Right.
We're a team, and we're here to build each other and learn, and hopefully one day you can
This can be yours.
Yeah.
This can all be yours.
Yes.
So, and you're right. There's a very big difference between sort of managing and leading, right? And
Correct.
So, you mentioned the fact that you now have your practice. And remind me, what year did you start it?
So I established Joseph Interiors in 2020. That's when I actually left that job in Pasadena, because with COVID, I was already living down in Orange County, where it all started. I came back. I met my now husband. My mom still lives here, so life just brought me back. I had a client from 2008 who I did some tile work for. So he asked me, "Hey, I bought a house. I would love for you to help me." And I go, "Well, sure, I can do that, but I work for somebody else Monday through Friday. I'm in Pasadena, so if you're okay with me helping you late at night or on the weekends," like, sure, we're not in a hurry. And I was able to put this beautiful project together, which is the Indigo project on my portfolio.
That's your first project.
Yes, that was my first project.
That's your first one?
Out the gate, yes. This
Oh my
gorgeous, oceanfront home. And
For the listeners out there, if that's the first project,
So
you're in great hands with JR.
yeah, I started with a bang. That project really set the tone. I was like, if I'm able to do this part-time from a distance, what can I do, on my own? So I decided to move to Orange County at the end of 2019, and I talked to my then former, boss, and I said, we kind of worked out a deal, like, just train somebody to take over, and then you can just ease into your own. And August of 2020, that's when it happened.
That's wonderful. Yeah. It sounds like you had just an incredible support system along the way. Not many people will experience that.
I have. I've been very fortunate to all the 3 jobs that I've had so far. It's been wonderful.
Yeah. And this is 2020. So we're 5 years.
5 years into
5 years.
Yeah.
And
actually, August of 2020.
And your
5
business
years.
Survived a pandemic?
Yep. It thrived, I should say. It thrived. I went from 3 small projects from old connections to having at one point 12. And as much as I love what I do, it got to a point where I was like, I need to start thinking of expansion. That's when I kind of had to take a pause and really look at it and look at this. This is it has to be an oil machine. It's moving. It's going forward. So
yeah, I feel like this entire industry benefited from the COVID bump.
We all did.
And it's interesting, right? Because if you think about that period of time, which was just horrible, but yet it was also filled with a lot of opportunities for those that seized the moment.
Yeah.
It feels so distant in my mind, but yet it wasn't too long ago. You think about, there was the people that just said, you know what, if this is it, I'm just going to drink cocktails every day.
Yep. Yeah.
And then there was people that were calling you up, JR, and saying, you know what, I'm going to remodel my house.
Yeah.
If the end of the world is coming, my house is going to look good at least.
Yeah. Well, people were stuck in their homes, they were not able to take their kids on vacation, so therefore, and interests were low. I mean, there's so many opportunities for everybody to just still look at their home. Like, all right, I need to set up an office. We set up a CrossFit gym for a little while at our own house. I don't know if you were part of that Zoom, classes.
The Zoom classes.
Yeah. So, so it was great. It was a huge opportunity. I went from 0 to 1,000, and it just gave me more, inspirations and even more
affirmation that you're on the right path.
This is what I want to do. And
is your business still growing at that same clip, or do you feel like, you know what, we experienced this hyper growth with the COVID bump and all these things, and now you've sort of gotten to a place where you know how many projects you want to take on? You're a little bit more selective and mindful of it, because having 50 projects all at the same time is not necessarily desirable.
No, that's
right?
not.
You probably there's probably a sweet spot for you.
Yes.
So take us through a little bit about your process, and what is that sweet spot for you when you're kind of entertaining the idea of bringing on new clients?
Sure. So as a boutique residential design studio, we're a team of 3. So right now, currently we have 6 projects, and 6 to 8 is our sweet spot. And it got to a point where instead of quantity, I want quality, right? So I was helping everybody. I have the tendency to always say yes to everything, everyone. I had, neighbors and friends and anybody calling for any design assistance. I'm like, sure, I'll help. And it got to a place where, well, in order for me to provide this amount of service, I have to have a much larger team. And I said, now it's at a point where we're focused on full renovation projects or very detailed custom work. And so 6 to 8 is our sweet spot.
That's great. And what I like to talk about is, you know, you're obviously in the business of helping people just reimagine their spaces, right? And just making it look incredible and applying all these years of your passion coupled with your formal education to these spaces. But we're also living in a time in 2025 where we have a lot of chat GPT interior designers.
Oh, yeah.
How does this help or harm your business?
Well, I hope that people, that my clients that work with me, we're providing experiences. It's not just creating a beautiful space. It's a collaborative process. And our approach, it's really focus and hone in into this individual. And I think that as smart as AI is, it's going to take a long time to get to that level of finding somebody's true style. I mean, as if they're being watched and heard for many years. Maybe they will get to that point. But my process is to really hone in into that specific, custom individual style and create something that, they for years are going to talk about. And it's personal, it's intentional, very collaborative. I have a team of people that I work with, and it's we don't get to always work together every project, but the ones we do, it's just so nice. It's just wonderful. I take a lot of pride of creating something that respects budget, timelines. We have we're focused on details and process, and it helps clients to not only have a good experience, but also they are well informed. By the time they say yes to a design, a proposal, they understand what it takes. So it's so much more than just a picture, an image. Like it's generated by a machine. It's it's service. It's experience. It's
a lot of work.
Relationship. We're fostering all these relationships. A lot of work, and these larger projects or any project, if you look at it, can be very overwhelming for a lot of people. Decision making and colors and pricing. You're talking about space that they're going to shower and sleep, and it's there's so much into it. And thankfully, I love every aspect, and I really take pride of holding their hands and walking them through. And say, as long as we establish that trust, and like this is our journey, and it's really fun. It's really great and satisfying till at the end to go back and see them, using the space or make a comment about, like, I never, even noticed this side of the room, and I have this chair, and I'm looking out to a yard, and it's just wonderful.
Yeah. I it's funny because I feel like nowadays everybody can look at something and feel like, oh, I could make that, or I could produce this, or I can just use artificial intelligence. And while there might be a certain percentage of that to be true, I think the truth is that you're still going to always need somebody that has the passion and the expertise to kind of help you through that journey, right? It's like with food, right? There's so many recipes out there, but there's a very big difference between me making that dish and the experience of having somebody that has been in the industry for many, many years.
Exactly.
That understands the nuances of, let's say, acidity and the spices or whatever that might be, and bringing that dish to life. It's very, very different. Yeah. But do you feel like the influence with social media has helped, you communicate the value proposition that you bring to your clients along the way, meaning it's almost brought them to the table as an active participant in helping you understand who they are and what they like, and how you can sort of refine that and deliver a better product in comparison to not having that?
Yes. So social media, Pinterest, Instagram, all these different platforms that are visual has helped tremendously. Now, back in the day, we would be creating boards, right? Physical things and magazines cut out. Like, this is back in, again, I'm dating myself a little bit here, like 10, 20 years ago. So now we just pull up a beautiful board that's done, on Pinterest. So it or even Instagram. There's so many references. I even use my own Instagram profile or other designers that I follow to show a detail, and it's just become this instant sort of tool that we have at our hands to illustrate, to really focus and hone. And part of my process is to help people put in together something like that creates a mood, it creates a vibe, and then we'll build on. So AI is very it's a good tool. It's very useful for that. But then we all know that there's a lot of work to get to that point from where we are, and coordination and
to the final product,
to the
moment
product.
that you're in your
Yeah.
living room with your friends and family, right?
Yeah.
So walk me through the process of somebody that doesn't really understand the true value of hiring somebody that is like a true interior designer, formally educated, versus, let's say, my wife, my partner, whatever that might be, saying, well, I could design the house. I just go to TJ Maxx, and we're going to be under budget. So let's talk about it. Let's put this fish on the table, because you have a lot of these DIY, and you watch enough YouTube videos and watch enough Instagram and pull up some ChatGPT, and the next thing you know, you think you're an interior designer. So let's talk about that versus Joseph Interiors.
Yeah, well, there's a lane for everybody, right? And I don't ever overlook anybody's potential. I think creativity can come to a lot of people in different ways. You can be creative, but putting it together, coordinating is a whole new thing. So our process is to really ask the homeowners, we make sure that we're a good fit for them. A lot of people, I've had friends and clients that called and said, I already have this picked out. I already know what I want and this and that, and this is what I want to work with. So I almost felt like, well, then I don't want you to spend your money on me. I want the ones that I want to experience. I love this, I love that, I love Greece, whatever it is that they are into, their lifestyles and things, and don't know how to get there. It's like, okay, here we go. I am your guy. I'm going to be your GPS, so to speak, if you're taking somewhere. So you need to take, I need to understand where we need to go, where we need to get, and you just need to follow my
You had a project that I came across on your website, and I believe that it was in reference to some of the islands off the coast of Japan.
Yes, that was one of our recent projects, the Belmont primary bathroom design. Yes.
Was there with that project in particular? Because it seemed to me that you designed the palette around that, which I would imagine was somewhat tied to the interests of the owners.
Right. That's actually a great way to explain the process, because she came to me and she said, I've done this before, and I seen your work, and she actually was referred from another client. So she goes, I said, well, what kind of help do you need? Because our service is tailored to most people, and some people they need help with the construction, furnishing. Some just want some concepts, and so she goes well, let's just hire you to help me finalize some decisions that I have. And we sat down for 20 minutes, and she realized that there was way more than she could do on her own. So she goes, let's just do it all. I was like, great, this is my preference to sort of help you throughout the process from, crafting the space, understand the concept, and looking to the different finishes and options and layout and things like that, and function. A space needs to look beautiful, but it has to function, right? So there's a fine balance. And she just basically and I said, describe me the feeling. Where do we want to go? She's like, I just love a tropical, sort of a clean Zen tropical island or vibe. Think of waterfalls and this and that. So she was very descriptive of how she want to experience the space. And I think that's a very important thing. Is not what you like about the space, is what do you feel about? What's your feeling about that space? That's evokes and he talks, about, it gives you the stones and the primary.
Yeah,
palette.
it's as you're sharing that with me, I'm reminded about an architect I was working with here in Laguna Beach. I probably just narrowed it down to about at least under 10. But we were working on a rebrand for them. And when I was evaluating the playing field, other architects and how they present their projects, a lot of them do it based upon this sort of category, right? They'll generally just drop a gallery, and you just have tons of beautiful homes, and it's great, but it doesn't really connect with consumers. Consumers are really, as much as they want the beautiful home, what they really are trying to chase are these beautiful moments. And these moments in a lot of ways speak to their personalities, from somebody that's like the home entertainer that likes to entertain people, or somebody that's like the technologist. Right. And a lot of these descriptives can really set the tone for, I would imagine, how you design the space, the materials you choose. Correct. And that feeling, that vibe, if you will, for your client.
Yeah, that's exactly how we started a conversation with that. Let's talk about the the experience. How do you want the space to feel, and what is it doing for us? What is it doing for you, right? So then that's when we set the groundwork, and then I apply, measurements, and we have to do things, to scale and things like that. That's more technical. Yeah. But essentially, it's that experience is that.
It's everything.
Yeah.
It's everything. And you know what? Spaces are so powerful because they can literally lift you up or they can bring you down.
Exactly.
Have you ever walked into somebody's house that's just a hot mess?
Yes.
Anxious, anxiety, stress. Get me out of here. Yeah. And then you walk into another beautiful space that's like everything's in its right place and you feel like peaceful and calm.
I mean, even lighting, if you think about it, you go to some, I don't know if you guys experience spaces like you do, maybe you don't, but there has been some like restaurants or even like malls and showrooms that you go and the lighting, if it's off, just the lighting, if it's off, it's
huge.
It's like, it's too bright or you have to, you get uncomfortable. It's just, there's so many different elements of a space that needs to sort of speak and create a positive, pleasurable experience.
Yeah. Now you primarily play in the space of sort of you play into the senses for sure.
Correct.
Not all of them, but I wonder, does audio play a role nowadays with you when you're designing spaces, given its prominence in creating those emotions and feelings? Like, for example, if you were to walk in, let's say, Wynn Hotel or Encore in Vegas, right? They're very keen on lighting, colors, feeling, but they also play on scent. They play on sound. So you have access to all these other things in our senses that you can integrate. Do you, in your practice, look to incorporate that element to, like, for example, saying, you want this vibe and you want this feeling, I think we need to get Sonance in here, right? And hide it in the walls. and there goes the budget.
Yeah. Well, no,
but does that come into play too? Or are you just always looking at creating more of the physical space and not concerning yourself too much about those other things?
I mean, we want to provide a full experience, right? And we all know the vision, sound, and smell is one of the strongest. That's how if you want to ever be memorable, you need to smell really good,
wear cologne,
or
perfume,
or be very loud. One of the two.
There you go.
Which I can be both. It comes to play like sound, control sound, right? You need to have a sense of like what are these materials doing for the space? Because I've been to many restaurants that it's so incredibly loud. That's why the whole idea, I think, behind fast foods were, let's make this as unpleasurable as it is, so we can get your food and get out. So yeah, it does come into play. The smell and sound obviously comes more into the furnishings, more the styling thing, where it's just, finishing that space. So, there's a lot more that goes into prior to that, but it is part of the process, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
To consider.
I love it. I love the fact that when you're discussing with prospective clients or return clients, that you're really keen on asking them about the feeling that they want to have, or what is the experience that you want this space to create for you and your family? Because I feel like that's the type of question I would love to hear being asked, that would get me thinking, because that would allow me to arrive at a moment where I could see you bringing that vision to life.
Yes, I mean, it's for you to create a space that's very impactful. Like, you need to be aware of those things, right? How do you live? Literally, give me your morning routine. Like, how do you...
Lots of Americanos, Joseph.
Exactly. Coffee stations everywhere.
Kiosk everywhere.
So it makes a difference. So I'm generally curious to see how they live. And a lot of times we also get some, like, I don't know. I'm not fully... I have a questionnaire that's part of the process that helps people think of those things. But if they don't, it's like, okay, let me give you some examples. Let's talk about it. Because a lot of times you're building a new space. They don't even know how it's going to be, right? So
right.
I also tell clients, like, sometimes you need to sort of look at your experiences. When you traveled, all the happy places, all the happy, good things you had, just give me those so I can recreate that. So
would you ever, as part of your process, in addition to the questionnaire, would you ever just spend time with them, going to a lunch or dinner, coffee, tea, whatever that looks like, just getting to know them on a human level, somewhat like we're doing right now in this conversation, just so you can get a read on who they truly are and what makes them tick? Because they're going to share stories, and through those stories, you'll probably pick up on these nuances that would affect the design?
Yeah, so the process for especially construction, it's a very long process. So from when we start to when we're done, you're looking at sometimes a year and a half, 2 years, right? Or even more sometimes, depending on how big the project is. So we are going to spend a lot of time. And I do allow enough time, even to come up with the concepts in the beginning, like the very first, phases, we do set up meetings so we can kind of have these types of conversations. And some clients are more business focused, like, they filled out the questionnaire, they give me enough materials to run off on. But yeah, we do provide that. I generally want to get to know them and make sure that we understand each other, that, what we're coming back with, it makes sense to what they're, what they want.
Yeah. So tell me real quick as we kind of bring the conversation to a close. What type of clients do you love working with the most?
The ones that are craving something special. The ones that are like I said, I like this and that, just don't know how to get it. I'd love for you to help us. The ones that understand the process. And I know it can be overwhelming for a lot of people, but you have to really trust that person that we're dealing with, various contractors, a lot of money. And so the perfect client would be the ones that are open to, having a space that really presents their lifestyle and their identities, and, that they're not afraid and they listen, they can trust, and just know that it's a collaborative work, but they're just part of it and they're being guided by my expertise and skills.
And if you were the consumer and you have never hired an interior designer and you're now considering that, what type of questions should that consumer ask of the prospective interior designers that they're considering to help them make the right decision, that they are in fact picking the right person? Because you mentioned that it's a long process, could be a year, could be a year and a half, maybe a significant investment, and you don't want to waste your time and your money. So what should consumers be asking when evaluating who to pick for that role?
Great question. I would ask for their process, their collaboration with the trades, because again, you can come up with a beautiful design, but if you don't have a good builder or contractor, you're in trouble, right? And by not having the right team, that can really cost and can be challenging for a lot of projects. So I would ask their collaborations, their experiences, how they charge, what's the process like, what are the deliverables, and because, the way we do things, we measure, we put things on paper, we create books and specs, and there's follow-throughs, and there's a very, sturdy process that helps them understand. So it's black and white. They know exactly what we're, when we're doing things and how we're doing things. And so I would ask those questions to see what the process is, and they're collaborative if they have people that they work with. And yeah, that would be some of the main pointers, and how they charge, how's the fee, and all that stuff, so that they know.
And what are some of the trends that you're seeing nowadays?
We are going back to maximalism. I think the whole black and white and gray, it's on its way out. We're bringing back a lot of the classic, patterns and colors, bold, warm tones, organic. And it kind of reflects a lot on how I do things. I love transitional design, which is basically a basis of traditions, right? You respect the language of the space, the architecture of the house, and you just layer it with the individuals, vibes and styles. But then you're doing things that feel contemporary, it feels modern, but yet you're still respecting, the tradition or the old architecture per se. So I think we're going back to having, more is more, a lot of moldings, a lot of, colors, patterns, and we're just taking a step back from, too clean to minimal.
And if somebody is listening or watching this and they have a shoestring budget, okay, and they want to dress up their space, maybe they have a one-bedroom apartment, maybe they're just getting started in life, or maybe they have a big, beautiful home and they're a little bit later down the road. What is the 1, 2, or 3 things that could dress up a space immediately on a shoestring budget, besides the vacuum cleaner just cleaning it?
Clean, organizing. Honestly, flowers, out of all things. Talk about color and scent. Adding flowers in a space does tend to bring a lot of happiness and make the space looks live. I mean, a couple of rugs here and there doesn't hurt. Some, pillows and things. Perhaps a texture on the wall if you're able to hire or do it yourself. Some plaster, something that adds interest and depth to the space. I think those are all really good features. And lighting, artificial, natural, whatever way to bring in light and proper lighting to the space will change your experience tremendously. Like from task to mood to overall lighting. There's like 4 levels of lighting for every space. So if you're able to discover what those are, and it doesn't take much to add some good lighting to a space, lamps, and LED focal points and things like that.
Soft boxes.
Yeah, soft boxes. Yeah.
And lastly, what advice would you give to the 20-year-old JR that's out there that's just getting started in their journey in interior design? What would you share with them?
Wow, that's a great question. Advice: keep trusting your gut. Really, just you have this very clear path of how your life is going to be. I would just don't ever lose track of that, right? Because there has been a lot of things in life that you just pulls you one way or the other. As it just trust your gut.
Just go forward.
Yeah, just go forward. Yeah.
I love it. Well, I thank you for your time, JR. I really appreciate it. I hope everybody checks you out online. What is your website and what is your Instagram?
Sure. Thank you so much for having me. So it's joseph-interiors.com. That's our website. And Instagram is at Joseph_interiors. That's simple. Joseph Interiors.
I love
Easy
it.
to find.
I love it. And again, another big shout out to Walker Zanger, where everything started for you in many ways and set you on the course for this journey.
Yes.
I wish you the very best ahead. You're only 5 years in. That's a remarkable progress that you've made. And it sounds like you are blessed to have found your passion. And anyone would be very blessed to work with you after they look at your portfolio. It is stunning. So congratulations,
so much,
my friend.
Thanks, Eric.
Thank you.
All right.